Hey, folks. Hour number 2 here. Thanks so much for being with us today. So we just came off an hour where we were talking about the news that Governor Asa Hutchinson proposed a budget to increase spending $172 million, while at the same time on his website he was trying to put out this phony idea that he was cutting $100 million. And it was only just $100 million from the increase from last year, the proposed budget. And so carefully crafted language strikes again, manipulation of the potential voter. It's election season. I mean, it's been just a huge news day so far, just on that alone. And I want to pick back up with exposing all of this. And we're going to get to Mr. Josh Waters here in just a minute. But this is Representative Kim Hendren. And this is what he was saying yesterday, trying to get a handle on how much spending is increasing to go back home and tell his constituents. Listen.
They're expected for the next year. How many billion? 5.6, 5.8, $6 billion? What is it? Just roughly. Now that's, I hope, just a total.
I think it's 5.69 billion.
5.6, who said that?
I did. It's on the bottom of the page.
5.6 billion. He's one that can read. 5.6 billion of revenue expected for next fiscal year, right? What was it for last fiscal year? The one we just went out of.
Well,
You guys having trouble reading?
Stop for a second. And keep in mind, this is the director of budget trying to answer these questions. Go again, Joe.
it was $5.348 billion.
So it went from 5.4 to 5.6, roughly?
Well, where we expect to have net available revenue of 5.453 in 18, and then 5.69 in 19.
All right,
so
stop.
I can say we.
So really good job there by State Representative Kim Hendren of exposing that this isn't what the governor says on his website, a $100 million cut. This is actually a $172 million increase. Joining us now to talk, who was in the room for all of this, a Marble Palace update. We've got Mr. Josh Waters back on the program, second day in a row from Political Strategies. Josh, how are you, sir?
Hey, good morning, Paul. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. And you know, I really, this audio that we have, we went over it last hour. We just heard from Kim Hendren there. We heard from Senator Brian King, talk about just trying to get some answers out of Duncan Baird, the governor's budget director. He wasn't able to actually get a satisfactory answer. We've got Senator King coming up at the bottom of this hour. What are your thoughts generally about what happened yesterday? The governor gives his speech, then the legislators get to ask questions of the governor's staff.
Generally, Paul, I think yesterday may have backfired a little bit on the governor. I think the intention was to come out and have these headlines basically be what his press release was. And there's a few news organizations that kind of just cut and paste his news release, but there are some who actually took the handout that was given, looked at the front page that was talking about, the cut from his original proposed budget, but then when they flip all the way over to the last page on the last line, you see, well, we're actually increasing spending by $172 million. And so there are several legislators that cut through the carefully crafted language and saw that number, and that even made the headline I saw from the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. And so I think the intention yesterday was try to come out and look conservative on spending, and I think it was probably a mixed bag as far as the reporting went of that. And so I'm not sure it was what they anticipated or expected yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know specifically the political persuasions of John Moritz. I mean, I can guess. But I feel like a lot of people who are in the mainstream media, they might see that headline is a good thing. Meaning, $172 million increase. Oh, good. That's, when the government grows, that's a good thing. There's a lot of people that subscribe to that philosophy. They really do believe prosperity comes when government grows. And so that may be why you have the headline you have.
Yeah, that could be why. I guess I didn't think about it that way. But that could be. And one other thing that came out yesterday, Paul, leading into this, there's this kind of mysterious quote that was put out about a week or so, I guess, from the governor's office, that there's going to be this new conservative tool in this new budget that was being presented. And what we found out yesterday, this tool was setting aside $64 million that's going to be coming in revenue, setting that $64 million aside, $48 million of it into a restricted reserve fund that could be spent. They basically said if there's economic volatility, not a lot of details on what it may be spent on, but $48 million will be in this restricted reserve fund. Now, later in the meeting, the state representative Charlotte Douglas was asking, well, what is this fund? What legislative oversight is there of this fund? Because in Arkansas, to appropriate or spend money, you're supposed to get 3/4 majority of both chambers based on the Constitution. And they've tried to find ways to get around that because it is a high standard to spend the people's money. And so the language that was used for this fund from the governor, he used the word legislative concurrence, and then Duncan Baird used the word coordination. And then come to find out when the specific question was answered, this fund is something that's going to be created, and the language of what type of legislative oversight will come later, I think, during the fiscal session. So that's the conservative budgeting tool, is this new restricted reserve fund, and then a portion of that $64 million is someone going to the highway department or to help with highway.
Okay, so you're saying how we spend this money, and again, the word conservative is depends on how you define conservative. The way Asa defines conservative is not the way I would define conservative, but you're saying how we are able to spend this money, we still don't know yet. So we don't know if they'll take this money and try to not go by the Constitution of Arkansas, which is actually if it takes 3/4 of both chambers to spend money, that is a limited government concept, because we want to make sure that everybody agrees, or a vast majority agree before the government acts. And I think most people can understand that that is good government. But we don't know if they'll try to take this new fund and be able to, spend the money in a different way, right?
That's right. So we don't know the language of what the legislative oversight will be on this fund. The language that the governor used was, again, concurrent, and then Duncan Baird used the word coordination. So that makes me think concurrence is more of a, you concur in an opinion and in a legal opinion as an attorney, that's what I think of. And that's basically you agree with. And so kind of more like a rubber stamp rather than a whole separate approval process.
So it could just be legislative council. Right now, the legislative council, anytime the governor wants something, most of the time they just rubber stamp whatever he wants, and they call that legislative oversight.
Yeah, and so I think that's going to be probably a debated topic going into the fiscal session on, okay, this restricted reserve fund or revenue fund, what is the legislative oversight of that, and what can this money be spent on?
Very, very interesting stuff. So what was the attitude in the room when Senator Brian King was pointing out that the Hutchinson administration, speaking of not liking the 3/4 majority requirement, and you mentioned that they tried to get around that, and they did try to get around that when they funded Obamacare Medicaid expansion, or last time in 2016. What was the attitude in the room when Senator King was pointing out that, hey, you guys used to say that we had to have this program and more people on it, or the current number on it, or we're going to have a hole in the budget, versus now they're saying if we need to get rid of these people to save money. I mean, what was the attitude in the room? Because he really did a good job of pointing out what I think is a contradiction.
Yeah, I think the attitude in the room, honestly, though, Paul, was just kind of some quietness. People, not really paying much attention to that, unfortunately, because I thought that was a really good question. But that was that morning. In the afternoon session, there was even more questions about that, almost the exact same questions, Senator King. And by the afternoon, in so many words, Cindy Gillespie, I think maybe for the first time, has admitted that having less people on Arkansas Works actually does save money and helps the budget. And she pointed to higher premiums as a reason that's gone up, and having less people would mean less premiums. And then she pointed to the match rate, which we know is going to be going up over time to eventually 10% that the state will be paying. And so Senator Jimmy Hickey in the afternoon actually asked basically the same question and got right down to it. He asked, if we got rid of the Obamacare Arkansas Works program, how much money would we save? And they didn't have those answers, but I'm told that they're going to get that number. And so I think for the first time, but Senator King was saying before, they said getting rid of this program would hurt the budget. And so the first time, I think we're going to see maybe what the savings will be if this program is ended.
Wow. Now, so that is a 180 in a big way here, because they have always said that we got to keep the program. And then they're still saying that, but you're saying that they finally have admitted that less people on a welfare program actually saves money. I mean, who'da thunk, right? I mean, they have been operating in such a just completely detached from reality, where they say they want us to ignore federal tax dollars and state tax dollars, and they have been saying for years, basically the more people on this program, the better. I mean, they don't come out and say that, but it's only now that Arkansas has to start paying that they're now, trying to do something about this.
Yeah, I think I was speaking with the legislator after the meeting, and I think that was somewhat of a bombshell. For the first time that I know of, DHS was basically admitting what many people have been saying, that if you end the Arkansas Works program, we're going to save money. And in my opinion, we can't afford it, and other legislators have been making that case for years.
Well, so I think it's good that Senator Hickey, picked up on that question that, Senator King didn't get an answer to. And, and they actually are admitting some of this stuff. So really, really good stuff here. Josh, any other observations? We got to go to break here in just a minute. Any other observations from your, time down at the Marble Palace yesterday?
I guess two other things, just real quick, Paul. One was there was some question. This is something I've seen in my own research of government numbers. At one point, Representative Deanne Vaught, she was looking at a handout that was given out that morning, and then two handouts that were given out that afternoon by DHS. The one that morning was, I think, the governor's numbers or dealt with his presentation. And she said, look, I'm looking at these numbers, and they're not even the same numbers within the department and from the governor's numbers. And she's like, it's going to be hard for me to vote on an appropriation. And I think she mentioned there's a $10 million difference. Where's that amount? And I think she may have gotten some answers afterwards. I know they came and staff was talking with her, but that was something that did come out that I think was confusing to some. And then the other thing, Paul, Senator Gary Stubblefield asked specifically on these numbers of people that were taken off the program. Most of the numbers that were given were the Arkansas Works program because they're on there fraudulently. So I just wanted to share some of these numbers. There are 7,953 people taken off of Medicaid in 2017 because they're incarcerated and no longer qualified. There are 796 people who had dual coverage, meaning they are on the Obamacare Arkansas Works program, and they're getting an advanced premium federal tax credit at the federal level Obamacare program. And then 25,742 people were out of state and getting public assistance from other states. And so they were taken off the Arkansas Works program from that. There are 7,198 people on Medicare and Arkansas Works at the same time, which you cannot be on both of those programs. And then there's 16,467 people who had gotten new jobs and were no longer qualified based on their income levels. So overall, the total number given was over 84,000 people were taken off the rolls of Medicaid, with most of those numbers I just read the breakdown of the Arkansas Works program. So, Paul, what was asked then by Senator Hickey is, so we have all these people that we took off the program, 84,000 people, and yet, DHS was there, and to their credit, we're asking for less money. than what they originally asked, but it's still $142 million total increase. So you have 84,000 less people, and they're still increasing the overall budget by $140-something million
on the Medicaid, on that specific line item. Wow, that's crazy. Right. Can you imagine what it would be if they left those 80,000 people on there?
Yeah.
Gosh, that is crazy. And you know, folks, it's a scam. I mean, this whole thing has been a scam because those 80,000 people on the program who shouldn't have been on there, you have been paying the likes of Blue Cross and Blue Shield every month for a premium around $500 per person. And, you know, people weren't even supposed to be on. I mean, it literally everything about this program since 2013 has confirmed my worldview as a conservative who wants limited government. Josh Waters, very good numbers. I'd try to write some of them down so I can reference them later. I appreciate you coming on the program, sir.
All right. Thanks, Paul. Keep up the good work.
All righty. Thank you. Josh Waters, a Marble Palace update there. Folks, got to go to break. Back in just a moment.